Hey guys, okay, today's video is going to be kind of twofold. It's sort of a book review, and then I'm going to get into the topic of how this book kind of changed some of my thought processes. I've read a book, maybe even fiction. This one's not that I'm going to talk about, that you feel like that just changed my life. Let me fix this camera a little bit. I just recently read one that did, and I can't even remember how I found out about this book. I think it was in another book. It might have been recommended. But anyway, it is Book of Shadows by Phyllis, I don't know if I'm going to say her last name right, Curott. It is not, I know there's a lot of books out there that are called Book of Shadows. They're like copies of a grimoire or Book of Shadows. This is not. This is her memoir of the time in her life when she started developing pagan spirituality, how that happened and how it changed her, the experiences she had, the things she went through. She started off, I think the reason this was so kind of life-altering for me, well, first, like I said, it's a memoir, so it's autobiographical, written, you know, first-person narrative, you know, autobiographical. It reads like a novel. I mean, it's absolutely engrossing. I got through this book in a week. I was devastated when I got to the last page. One of those kinds of books, but it's not fiction. She was, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, raised by atheist parents, and she was, she definitely considered herself an atheist. She had basically no spirituality whatsoever other than having an interest in philosophy. In college, she became, was it college? She became friends with a girl who she discovered was Wiccan, who invited her to a women's circle at friends of hers that she knew at a bookshop, pagan kind of shop, and she didn't want to go at first. She was like, witchcraft, Wiccan, this is insane. What am I thinking? You know, like, she was just, the skeptic part of her was just like, I don't know if I could do this, but obviously she went, and she kept going. And I think the thing that made her keep going was the women who were in the circle were just amazing, and she just wanted to hear what they had to say, hear their stories, the priestesses. And she started to discover in the very beginning, you know, one of the first kind of things that the priestesses talked about was the oppression of women by organized religions throughout history. And she was very much Phyllis was very much a feminist, so that intrigued her and sparked her interest and got her to continue to go to these meetings in the circle. Slowly she started having experiences, mostly synchronicities that just were kind of impossible to ignore. And then she got, as part of the training to be a Wiccan initiate, she was taken through a lot of meditation, visualization exercises, that kinds of things, connecting with the elements. I think she spent a week with each element, just engrossing herself in, and this is a really interesting thing that I learned, that was kind of an aha moment for me reading this book that I never thought of. She talks about each of the 4 elements being like archetypes. Maybe a lot of you were like, well, duh. I never thought of it that way. Never. It started to come up for me recently because I'm studying tarot. And in tarot, it's not so, the 4 suits in the minor arcana are representative of the 4 different elements, and they are definitely parts of your life, and sort of, you know, archetypes, like, you know, water, cups represents our emotions, that sort of thing. But she went really deep with it, and not just understanding it, learning what each element meant, but experiencing it. What about me is water? How in my everyday life can I experience the element of fire? You know, like she spent a week when she was engrossing herself with the element of fire, she lit candles all over her apartment every single night and would take in and feel the heat of the sun's rays penetrating. She lived in New York City at the time, so she would go to a park a lot and sit under a tree. The biggest thing that, and it took her a while to fight through skepticism, and that's very much, I mean, I am such a skeptic. I very much am. I think it's good to question, though. It's good to question. You definitely don't want to be led blindly. I think I've been led sort of blindly before, and it'll never happen again. I search things out for myself. And she was the same way. She was very much like, I don't know. But she started having experiences with the divine, with the goddess, that were profound and that changed her life. And looking at them through her eyes and through her words and through her... The wind blew really hard and blew a container out of my recycling bin. Things are getting thrown at me. The element of air is throwing things at me. Anyway, so yeah, this book did a lot of things for me. It was very eye-opening and quite life-changing. I haven't changed my general idea of what divinity is. I'm still very much have a pantheist view of divine energy and what divinity is. I still do not have a concept of like a separate what would be a word, being or entity, you know, like I said, that hasn't changed. However, I've always had trouble with even calling that divine energy the goddess, even just manifesting it that way in my own head, because it just didn't make sense, and I felt like I was backtracking in my spirituality and seeing it that way. But after reading her experiences, coming from a similar place where I am, you know, well, she didn't start off in a similar place spiritually where I am now, but she slowly got there in the beginning of the book and then progressed from there. And I am okay now with calling that divine universal energy goddess. I wasn't before. I think if you know, it's just not something that we can grasp fully, comprehend fully. We almost have to, as human beings, we have to personify it. There's no other way for us to experience the divine and even begin to even sort of understand or communicate with the divine universal energies unless we attach some sort of something that we know to them. I mean, you know, that's how we call it and make it the god and goddess. That masculine and feminine energy. I still have a stumbling block of, you know, the male energy. That's just still, I think, wounds from Christianity, but I'll work through them. But to see, I can now feel like I can actually experience and communicate with divine energy and say that this is the goddess. And I finally feel like I can work with, I mean, I was before working with different goddesses, the archetypes, you know, Isis, Diana, Hecate. I feel like I really can now, though. Like it sparked this connection, this missing link I was having in my connection with the divine. And I can now allow myself to the freedom to feel like it's okay to personify that energy as the goddesses or gods. I felt like I could not allow myself to do that before. I just couldn't. And you can't make a connection with something if you don't feel like you can relate to it on some level, I think. And I think that the gods and goddesses, all the different pantheons, that's how we can relate. The different archetypes, they're different aspects of ourselves There are different aspects of things we're going through. And I always knew that and felt that. But like I said, there was just some missing piece where I wasn't, my skeptic, logical mind was not allowing me the freedom to experience that pantheistic view to the next level where I could actually have a relationship with it. I just, it's almost like I can, open my eyes now and see the world differently. I don't know how else to explain it. And that sounds very, sounds very like religious almost, and which is a little bit frightening, but it's not how it is at all. It's purely spiritual, and it's like I can like feel the connection now between like, myself and the trees that surround my home. This exchange of, this exchange of breath. Like I can almost feel it, almost see it if I sit and meditate and want to. And that to me is the goddess communicating with me. And I understand that connection and that inner working better now that I am allowing myself to let that personification fully into my life and not be so afraid of it, afraid that it's going to take me away from any kind of, logic. And she talks about that in the book too. Like, she's like, she's like, I'm having these experiences that don't make any sense, and I don't want to be not logical about it. And that's definitely how I feel. But you can't be so close-minded that you don't let anything in. So it's just expanded my pantheistic view, I would say, a little bit, strengthened it, because I know I called myself in my very first video, and I guess I still would, you're an atheistic pantheist. And not that I'm still not, but I don't know about using the atheist label per se. I mean, I technically consider myself an atheist still, from the basis of what a majority of the population of the earth considers. If you ask, and I'm not just talking about America, I'm talking about worldwide, and you ask somebody, do you believe in a God, a higher power? What that means to most people, particularly the Judeo-Christian religions, what that means to them is very different, extremely different than what it is to me. And if their version of, the traditional version, traditional is probably a good word, the traditional version of a divine energy being a separate being from the wholeness of the universe itself, then no, I do not believe in that. No. And I don't think, and I never will. I won't. It's just not what it is. It's not what it is to me, and it never will be. And when I did believe that when I was a Christian, it was so different than how I think things now. As it's just so much easier to accept and wrap your head around that the universe itself is one living, breathing organism and is the divine, the pantheistic view. I almost struggled with whether or not I was pantheist, and I was like, I'm adamantly atheist. I think I'm sort of pantheist, but I'm also pagan and a witch. And I've just had this very gentle, subtle shift almost from feeling more like, yes, I am a pantheist for sure. I am definitely 100% a pantheist, and also a pagan, and also a witch, and atheist depending on what you mean by the term God. It just depends on what you mean by that, because I am very much pantheist. So this opened that door for me to really embrace the pantheism part of my spirituality, instead of kind of being willy-nilly about that and being adamant of the atheist part. I know it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it? I know I've had a few subscribers who've commented and said, I get you, I get it, and there's, yes. So maybe you can understand this. And it's just steps in your spirituality. You go through steps and processes and growth. I mean, you can't say stagnant, for goodness sakes, you know. So just moving along like you're supposed to. It's just natural, organic, spiritual growth. And it's just amazing to me that one woman's journey, her spiritual journey, and her writing of her, you know, memoir about it was so, like, life-altering for me that, because I just understood her, you know. I understood where she was coming from in the beginning, and I understood the experiences she was having in the beginning, and trying to wrap her head around them, and, like, being like, this doesn't make sense, though, to my logical mind, I can't. And then she finally allowed herself to be like, I just can't deny this. I cannot deny this communion with the goddess who is the universe and everything in it, and is nature, and is the elements, and is in me, and we're not separate. And I think that's a key too. As soon as you don't see yourself as separate from everything else, from, you know, the divine, from nature, from the universe, it really clicks then. And then, you know, the goddess is just your personification of that. In order to connect with it, you need to put it into some sort of a box that you could understand. And, you know, the parts, there's just no other way. And I feel okay using the word goddess now and saying that. And I'm not somebody who's going to say I worship the goddess. I experience the goddess, and everybody does, you just don't recognize it. Or you work against it. Work against her. Instead of with. I have a lot of highlights and washi tape pages in this book. Oh, I don't know if I ever mentioned that. Is it a dog ear? I deface books, by the way. I have many journals where I keep notes, but I also highlight and stuff. But is it a dog earring? I use washi tape to mark off pages that I, you know, if I'm gonna come back to the book that were like critical. It looks nicer, and it you know, and technically you can get the washi tape off, but not that you know, the books that I really go to town on, I don't ever plan on getting rid of anyway, I mean, at all. But she goes through a lot of, she also goes through a pretty hefty shadow work journey in this process. And once she gets, I was going to say once she gets through the other side of that, it was, you know, is when she really understood the goddess and divinity. However, I think it was the journey more than anything. You know, it's kind of cliche. It's not the destination, it's the journey, but it's so true. And I'm at the point in my journey right now where I feel like I very much had this spiritual epiphany, where I finally feel a connection to this universal energy that I knew existed all along, and I feel okay personifying it, and I kind of didn't before. It didn't feel authentic. And I understand why we as humans have a need to do that now. Yeah. So I highly recommend this book. I mean, absolutely. I think it was printed in 1998, so it's not a new book by any means. So if you've been around the block for a while, you might have had it. You might know about this. I think it was really popular when it came out. I hadn't heard of it though. So maybe other kind of people who have only been on this spiritual path for a short time like me will not have heard of this, since this, you know, because like I said, it's not a how-to book, which is usually what ends up getting recommended. It's autobiographical, but it's just beautifully written. The way she writes about and describes her experiences, her meditative visions, it's just amazing. And it's just, it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I mean, I could relate to that, and I want to have that deep experience like that, and go. And speaking of that, she wrote another book, which I just started. I didn't I'm not finished yet, so I couldn't give you like a total review on it. But she did write another book called Witchcrafting. When her memoir book, Book of Shadows, was so popular, people were kind of begging her, like, I want to have those experiences that you had, and what do I do? How do I have them? So nothing, I mean, it's really good. Nothing absolutely mind-blowing in that, like there was in the other book, but yeah, it's still really good, and I would recommend this for sure. I would recommend both of these for anybody who is a new seeker of pagan spirituality. I definitely would. And my cousin and her daughter, her teenage daughter, are a little bit are starting to show interest and ask me a lot of questions and stuff. And I may try and pick up other copies of these, give it to them to read and share, because I think it's such a good place to start. And I wish I almost would have been that her Book of Shadows memoir book would have been like the first book I ever read, because it's just so deep. It just hits the mark so deep, so profoundly, versus just, you know, get these tools, this is how you cast a circle and why. You can tell somebody how to do something and why, but if they don't understand the why and feel the why and like connect with the why, it's pointless. They're just going through the motions. So yeah, it was pretty darn profound. I wrote down some like major notes in my journal. I don't know if anything's kind of worth reading to you guys, but oh yeah, I said that she goes through definitely a shadow work experience too, which I think is crucial. Know thyself, you know. First rule. I always stumbled over like know the God and Goddess though. I really did, because I just couldn't bring them to life. And I can now through pantheism. Definitely still through pantheism. I wouldn't call myself a polytheist or what is it? Oh, there's soft and hard polytheism. I mean, I'm nowhere near hard polytheism. Nothing against anyone who is. It's just not where I kind of wish I was. I think it would be easier. But yeah, it was definitely a life-changing read. I highly recommend it. And if anything I said made sense or didn't make sense and you have any questions, comment below. I'll try to answer them, or if it seems like it's, you know, a video worthy topic, I can do a video and kind of delve into things a little bit deeper. I'm gonna have more videos coming up on tarot and oracle cards too, and I'll ramble more about topics, but this was something really profound that happened to me recently, so I just figured ramble for, you know, 23 minutes about the goddess and a book and my views on it. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I know a lot of you kind of feel the same way I do spiritually, so give me your thoughts. If anybody's read this book, definitely give me a comment and let me know what you thought of it. And until next time, thanks for watching and blessed be.